Jack Zuvelek, I think we might have first come in contact at that first event that I had in Perth at Sam Farrell's gym. Yeah, so real
Yep.
movement event. Jack already had multiple gyms and was doing well over there in Perth, I think. You'll correct me on that if it's wrong, but he came along with one of his associates to my workshop over there. And we sort of made a bit of a friendship, and we've been in touch since then. That was maybe 2016 or so.
Yeah, I put it on my Instagram. I put it on my Instagram where I
Okay.
was doing when I was doing that muscle up, and I
Yeah, I was
can't
like,
like
who's this jacked guy that's got some confidence. He's got some spark about him, this guy. And so then we've had contact over the years. Every now and then he's presented for Real Movement Community and sort of saw the growth of his
11th of
franchise
June,
gyms. When
11th
was
of
it?
June, 11th of June, 2016.
There you go, right in the
Yeah,
middle.
yeah.
So since then we've also gradually evolved the conversation to talk more about kind of international business, crypto, and all sorts of things. So Jack was earlier to that space than I was, and looking at those sorts of things. He's had a bunch of different sort of businesses since the gyms sold out of the gyms like 18 months ago ish.
Yep. Yeah, February 2020.
Yep. So
Yeah.
pretty good timing probably on that for having a franchise of gyms in New Zealand and Australia. Anyways, that's the chat for today. So you guys are welcome to sort of ask any questions and sort of chip in where you'd like. But I've got a bunch of stuff I'd like to talk with Jack about and just get where he's at. So I've just recently jumped in on buying some NFTs. I was buying some just little ones through Theta when they set up their own exchange, and I was just buying like $5 NFTs just kind of to see how it works and just sort of support what they were doing. And it seemed like they were just working out the kinks. And now it seems like their first real serious project is the Secret Pineapple Club. I don't know or Secret Pineapple Society that they've just launched.
Yeah, they're cool.
Yeah, well, it's an interesting play, but I just want to, like your take. I've just started to look at like Bored Ape Yacht Club and understand like what actually has happened in this space and really go back and watch what, Gary Vee and some of these guys have been saying. Like, have you been watching the space, or what are your thoughts there?
Like I've thought about it a lot. And the basis of it, like you've obviously got like the NFTs with token, like kind of, how do you say it? Like they've got token, like they've got backing, like Bored Ape Yacht Club and stuff like that. But then you've got so they come with like functionality,
utility,
utility functionality. Sorry, that was what I was working for. Like they've got obviously Bored Ape Yacht Club. They've got like you get to go on the private events and network and stuff like that. And then you've got like crypto punks, which are just pure status symbols, and that's all they are. And that's how I see this space is like I've got a Rolex, and people who understand Rolexes, they like always comment on it and they always compliment me. Like I've probably had 50 to 100 business conversations about it, because if you know, you know. And that's why I think with these NFTs, like the ones with no real utility, they are just literally, the cool thing used to be, hey, can you go drop 500 grand on a Lambo or a G-Wagon or a Bentley? Now it's like, if you're that liquid, can you go drop 500 grand on a Pixel JPEG? And it's the pure status play, status flex. And that's always been throughout time. From medieval, you had serfs to kings. And it's always been a status play. So this is just the next evolution of status. And I think that, it's just, people, when you've got those kind of high income earners, high net worths, they're always going to be wanting to prove their status, because it's just like our basic desire as humans to be accepted by the herd. And that's, again, our primal instinct. So I think that play of it is, again, it's just so fascinating to watch. And the prices are just driven by supply and demand, and like what the market will pay for it, right? That is free market economics. That's Austrian economics. So if the market will pay 100 ETH, 200 ETH for a Bored Ape Yacht Club, then that's what they're worth. So I think, the space is unbelievable. For me, I see kind of like NFTs like in the future, right? So let's say we're going to do Real Movement gyms, and we have 100 NFT holders. And then the proceeds from Real Movement, 20% will go back to the network of people that supported it. So that whoever holds these NFTs. We could fractionalize business. We could raise money from 100 people over the world. Let's just call it, we wanted to raise $100 million. Each NFT was $1 million each. And then the revenue from every period, it's every 3 months, that just gets divided by, it's paid out in dividends to all the NFT holders. So I see NFTs like in the utility going, all right, sweet, we're going to raise money, create capital, have access, and they're just going to be like digital tickets. I went to a festival on the weekend, and that's why my voice is a bit croaky, but like you got so many people that like scam tickets and shit, right? Whereas an NFT, you can't do that. So you're going to have like these NFTs. So, Keegan, I pay you for a ticket from a music festival, but then what's stopping you from posting it on Facebook and selling it to 100 other people, taking the money and going, fuck you. So whereas an NFT, it's on the blockchain, you can't you can screenshot it, but you need to actually go into the wallet and actually prove that you have ownership of this NFT. And I see the technology in that's going to change the world, change all those events like the mosh ticks and ticket techs and all that kind of shit. They're all going to have to change the way they do things. So I love the space. I think that the ones with utilities are so cool. They're just like membership cards. Give people access. And like those Bored Ape Yacht Clubs, you can go to an event and Steph Curry will be there. So it's just like a pay-to-play business mastermind, but you got like your Steph Currys, your Jimmy Fallon bought one I saw the other day. Who else is heaps of super high net worths and celebrities and stuff are buying them. So I think that there's a lot of cool stuff happening in the utility side, and I think it's going to change the way that businesses raise money and have memberships moving forward.
And the thing there is like, it just seems like so much better. Like I kind of proposed a business model. I've started a new thing, Jack. I've kind of parked Real Movement and I'm working ATG for coaches. And then I've started a new thing, Uncommon Success, which is sort of the psychological side of Real Movement of like, get shit done and go after weird shit that other people won't do. And if you want to be a strength coach, like do ATG for coaches. If you want a better life, then, do Uncommon Success. And it's like $100 a year. But I can see that if it was an NFT and if I like pre-released 80, 100 memberships, they would have gone like snapped up, and then people can always flip them if they don't, they would buy them for the potential value increase as well as for the utility. So you've got that double thing. Whenever you buy those memberships now, it's like, well, you've got, both aspects to it, but it kind of changes it's a different model to the subscription model where your recurring revenue is going to be in the pool, right? Like if there's, if there's the transaction fee, if you're getting like 5% or 7.5% or whatever it is of the transaction fees, then that's where you could make some money on your baseline, like low level subscription. You would rely almost on the turnover, but then you can always do new things with mintings and drops. And, it's going to be very, very creative, I think, for business owners. But I think it's like hugely in favor of the member, like where people don't really want to pick up another subscription. This is like takes a lot of the risk out of it. I think it's hugely in favor of like the community member then owns effectively a share in the business, even though you wouldn't word it like that, but it's effectively how it works, right? And so every member's incentivized to add value to the network because they own the token and they want the token value to go up.
Yeah, definitely. So a guy, do you know Taylor Welch from Traffic and Funnels? Do you follow him at all? Yeah, so
I've seen his ads, but I don't know.
Yeah, so he's got a one-of-one NFT that just has lifetime access to. So he's having an auction that's coming out. He's kind of just getting it all together. So he's like, some of his programs are $100,000 a year, some are $20,000 a year, but with this NFT, you get lifetime access to him and all of the events and every product that he releases from now, like from in the past with all the Traffic and Funnels, and he does like life insurance stuff and all this kind of cool shit in America. But you get your access to that, you get access to him. So I think the NFT will kind of go for 300, 400, 500 grand. Like, it's, if people do 10 years of business coaching at 300 grand, they're just paying for it up front. And then obviously there is that saleability of it in the future.
Yeah. That's if you're betting on the guy to increase his value, like if you can see, well, Uncommon Success is 6 weeks old, you can look at the results, the testimonials that are there in the November, is this thing going to grow or is this thing going to die? And that's something that everyone gets to make a bet on, but they also then get to actually play a part of like, well, if I'm a good customer of this, if I get a mad transformation, then I can actually influence the price of this. And, potentially, I was thinking about like how you can airdrop, you can airdrop tokens so people can on sell and as a way to expand the network, and then they can sort of set the price of it. And there's so much creativity, I think, from the business side. Will the regulators be able to, how will they look at this? How will they be impacted by this?
Like it's like I had this chat. So she's kind of like my godfather. He's 60 years old, massive success in businesses. He goes in and flips like struggling companies and sells them for a massive product. So companies that are failing, he goes in, fixes them up and sells them at like 20x what he bought it for. So makes like fat banks, super intelligent dude. And he thinks like in terms of like crypto as a whole, it needs more regulation and needs more, I guess, just guidelines of what to do. But like, again, with these NFTs, you won't be able to regulate it because like, again, I don't know what everyone's level of understanding of the blockchain is here, but you can add these records to the blockchain however you want. Like as long as you can mint something, then you can't regulate it, right? Like, I could go click during this call, go mint an NFT. If it doesn't work on Binance Smart Chain, I'll do it on Solana. If it doesn't work on Solana, I'll do it on Ethereum. If it doesn't work on Ethereum, I'll do it on Avalanche. If it doesn't work on Avalanche, I'll do it on Phantom. If it doesn't work on Phantom, I'll do it on Theta. Like you can't stop this. So in terms of regulating it, no, you can't. Like there's just no way that they can go and stop every way of minting and the internet sites and all this kind of stuff, right? Like, violence has been around from the beginning of time. So I feel as though that this is kind of like violence. There's always going to be around and people are always going to find a way to do it. So I think, like in terms of NFT regulation, there's no really way currently with my understanding of the tech and how blockchains work and everything like that, you can't regulate, you can't stop it. So again, how they do it in the future, like I think that there'll be, I don't know, like I can't see them, like the only way they can really regulate is the on-ramps. And so what on-ramps are, like the way that you put the money into the system. So switching from fiat to crypto, that's the only way they can really regulate crypto. So some like exchanges like Binance, if you want to do Pay ID from Australia, if you guys are in Australia, if you want to do Pay ID, they limit all of the privacy coins that you can buy. So if you want to Pay ID money in, you can't buy Monero, Dash, Zcoin, and a couple of other privacy coins because obviously they're trying to stop it from like money laundering and shit like that. So that's why I'm big on privacy coins because there's always going to be violence. So the regulation, that's the only really way you can regulate it, right? Because once you're into Ethereum, you can swap it for anything on Uniswap or SushiSwap or PancakeSwap or whatever, right? Like once you're in Ethereum or Bitcoin, you can do an atomic swap to whatever. So once you're in crypto, you're fine, but it's just the on-ramp. So switching from fiat to crypto, that's the only way they can really regulate it. Like on an exchange level, because once you're off the exchange, I click on my MetaMask and I pop a contract in and I can start swapping shit up and all that kind of thing. So that's kind of how I see it. Like, they can't really regulate NFTs per se. Like, you can do things through VPNs, you can do things through Tor browsers, like you can get really deep into like the dark web. So your identity's hidden. So then once your identity's hidden, there's no one that's really responsible.
It's super it's fascinating time to sort of see how this unfolds. For those who aren't fluent in the language of cryptos, I don't know how you guys are going. That I'm looking at your faces there. Like it is a new language. It's a bit like listening to a Spanish or a French conversation, and you kind of know most of the words, but then there's a few words that are tossed in of like, oh, I wonder what that one means. So if you're feeling like that, that's probably a good thing. And just becoming like, the more you listen to these kind of conversations and ask questions, interact, like that's how you become fluent in the language, like whether it's French or Spanish or, the language of sort of cryptos and NFTs. I certainly would not have been able to have this conversation like, 2 years ago. I had no real understanding of the crypto world at all. And the NFT stuff's just really come on my radar seriously in the last few weeks. So if you're listening to this and you don't get it, like, it's okay, but just fight the fight, because it's worth it, because the world is changing. Would be my my suggestion.
This is the biggest opportunity to create wealth in history.
Yeah.
I put $200 into Safe Moon and pulled out $6,000. Like just shit like that. Like, it is, honestly, you can get, I've seen people put one Ethereum into like a project. 4 days later, they pulled out 100 ETH. So they turned $6,000 into 600,000. And I was like, ooh, that's US. And I was like, holy fuck, in like 4 or 5 days. So yeah, the learning, like, my kind of rule is, like, if you put 20 hours of good study from good sources, you'll understand more than 95% of the population. I think there's only about 5% of the population that actually understands crypto. Most of my mates, no real idea. Like, again, and my mates are in the finance space and shit like that, so they kind of exposed to it, like, but they still don't really get it. And they don't really get the reason and why and stuff like that. But yeah, you put 20 hours of like solid study into it, and you'll be leaps and bounds of part, like in front of so many people, and you'll be able to make money. Like, it's honestly crazy. Like, I can show you guys spreadsheets and stuff like that I'm staking something. So I put about 20 grand into like a few different coins, and it spat out about 15 grand in less than 2 months, passive income. Like, I'm just like, it's fucking wild. Like, there's some things that I'll see if I can just show you guys this, but this will be kind of just to kind of dip the toes in. Let me get a tab up, ASX crypto. So I'll show you. These are kind of like 4 different tokens I put into. So there's OHM, Strong, Time, and Klima. So these Time, Klima, and OHM are like DAOs, so decentralized autonomous organizations. They kind of have like a treasury balance, and best way for me to explain it is I can kind of send some links over. So I put $6,000 into this. I bought 5 tokens. And then I bought at the token price of 1,220. Current token price is 777. So we've seen a 36% drop in my investment value. But because I've been staking the token since the 13th to the 10th, it's like the return, even though the token values dropped 36%, I'm still up 7%. Which is like crazy, because you've lost like 40% of your token value, but you've done there. But like when the token's going good, so this token value's gone up 11%, but then my staking ROI has gone up like 120%. So like just in these like alone, so you can kind of see that, put 24,000 into there. The asset value has gone up like $6,000. But then the total staking returns $14,000 since about the 13th of October. So you're getting these are projects that, they're like, it's crazy because you just get a payout every 8 hours. So like this is the Olympus DAO. So you can kind of like, the APY on this is 7,000%, and it pays out every 8 hours. So there we go. I'll just load up. You get these things. You've got that. So like your 5-day ROI based on the token is 6%. So like you just, as long as again the token price doesn't go down. So I'm getting 0.035 every 8 hours. So you get a rebase every 8 hours. So you get paid 3 times a day. And obviously like 20 grand, it's cool. But when you scale it up and like you've got a bit of cash to play with, like you can make kind of on 100 grand, you can make about $6,000 in 5 days. So it starts to grow pretty quickly, which is really cool.
Those kind of ones often, is that like liquidity pool, or what do you actually, what service are you providing with your money there?
You're locking up liquidity. So they, like, again, the easiest way, like if you work through here, so you're putting assets into the treasury. And by doing that, then it obviously creates a supply shortage. So if again demand stays the same, so you're putting assets into liquidity pool treasury, and again it's that helps that grow, and then it means like the protocol own liquidity is 99% because it's all locked up inside of the smart contract. And then you've got like risk-free treasury assets, which means that's assets that the treasury has, but obviously there's no risk. And then like in terms of staking and stuff like that. So as the token price goes up or down, then your APYs change. But like some of them you get like 80,000% APYs and stuff like that. They're pretty crazy. And they pay out every 8 hours. So unless again, obviously there's this case of a rug pull, but these have got like a 300-day runway from cash. So depending on the APYs and stuff like that. So it's a really cool way to do it. And then like, I always like to read both sides. So some people think it's like the greatest invention in modern business, and then other people think it's a huge scam. So it's a good way, just, again, obviously with everyone watching, just kind of read into DAOs or DAOs, and just kind of obviously grow your own perspective and see what you think. And if you see the value in it, then obviously invest.
Yeah. And obviously there's no financial advice here. There is opportunity to gain understanding into new areas where you may not have had understanding. I don't really understand deeply into that DAO game. There are different facets within you can speculate on tokens. So you buy the token hoping the token will go up, or there's these kind of plays where you're looking for a return on the token by staking it, by putting it to service of something, or providing liquidity. Something like depends on the like yield farming stuff, and then there's different ways that you can approach it, and they each have their own risk. The biggest risk is to have no clue what's going on and kind of just have your money where everyone else has got it and just hope for the best. I think Paul always says the biggest risk is the not knowing, like no knowledge. And then you just got to work out for your own risk profile. Like I guarantee Jack's talking about 20 grand there. It's not his last 20 grand that he's got in that place, so but it's adult conversations, and it's like living in bets. If you don't place any bets and you think that everything being under your bed is going to be the solution, like while they're printing a lot of money, like probably not the best solution to have everything under the bed or have everything in a zero interest account. Would be, that's my perspective, and everyone's got to work it out. The conversation is to fuel the thinking and open up possibilities. Some guys will watch this and go, fuck, like that's really interesting. And they'll go deep down the rabbit hole, and they'll get in contact with you, and they'll look up, do their 20 hours on DAOs and start to explore those. And other guys will be like, nah, like I just need to focus on my business at the moment. I just need to focus on this and that, or I'm sweet with learning, like I'm learning about NFTs at the moment. You can't learn it all and play it all the time, so that's the goal here, is like just open up the conversation, open up the frame of reference of what's going on, and then next time we have this conversation it'll be clear again. And so maybe like we could change pace a little bit of like what's going on in the business world, like what's selling, what's happening with businesses. I know you're huge on sort of funnels, SEO, like.
Yeah, like it's so like I still find it so interesting. Like the COVID hangover, like it's really changed the way that businesses operate, and they are having these like online first, I guess, kind of mandates. Everyone wants to make sure everything's COVID proof and stuff like that. But then again, you look at these Bored Ape Yacht Clubs and stuff. Back into that conversation, that these in-person awesome experiences are so in such high demand, like. Their people will pay through the roof. Is that
parties for Bored Ape Yacht Club and the club that they're talking about building?
Or just like any kind of, I'm just saying as like general conversation business as a whole, like just anything that's got a good experience in person, people connecting with each other. They're just going crazy. Like, like somewhere like my mate was running retreats in Sydney and he sold out like 30 spots for 5 weeks in a row. Like just stuff like that, because it's an awesome retreat. Like it's just that kind of stuff. I really see that's kind of going mental. In terms of like I guess what kind of businesses are the guys that you guys like in the inside of Uncommon Success? Like what kind of businesses everyone in fitness businesses and
mostly like more PTs and gym owners than anything else. But there are other people who are looking to get something started. They want to, they don't. There's that kind of crew. There probably aren't too many other businesses at this stage that I'm aware of.
Yeah, cool. So I'll speak to kind of, I guess, the PT business. So yeah, like again, I was a PT at Good Life in Cot. Club PT at a Good Life, which is kind of like a big box gym. If like your Anytime Fitnesses and stuff like that. So it's just a big box gym. And I grew it really really fast. Like I was kind of 19 at the time. And I went from like zero, never ran PT before, to like 50 clients in less than 3 months. Paying $70 a session for half an hour. So I was charging like 140 an hour. I made 140 grand as a 19-year-old. So like I did really well, and like I think nothing's really changed from that. It's just like the guys that are doing that, they just need to be really fucking good. Like, and that's all that it is. Like again, that was 2013. So that was 8 years ago. And I've just started training at the gym that I used to work at. And it's just like, I'd been in private gyms for 7 years, my own gym. I just trained there. And now I kind of I train at like kind of commercial gyms just because like I was traveling a little bit, like gone to Sydney, gone to Melbourne, whatever. So I got a couple of those passport memberships. And it's just so funny to watch the guys in there, the PTs, like they just have no idea about movement. They have no idea about progression. Like it's still the same shit. So I'm like, for the PTs watching this, it's like just get really good. And like again, if you are doing like the ATG stuff, that's such a good system. Like I use it in my training. I love it. It's just like you can actually get people results. And you can actually coach people and progress people and like actually get them on programs and just make a difference in their life. And I think at the end of the day, as coaches in the PT space, that's all that you're really doing. You're trying to make a difference to someone. You're trying to help them be better, stronger, fitter, pain-free, whatever their goals are. And I'm like, well, yeah, the way to do that is again, educate yourself. Back when I started, I read every article from Charles Pollock and John Meadows on T-Nation. Like I read through all of them back, and that was the kind of way I did that. So I'm like, yeah, as people obviously investing in your Uncommon Success information, that's going to change your mindset. And I kind of see like it's mindset, skill set. So like the belief and then the actual like skills to apply it. So I think, yeah, with that like PT thing, it's just like, yeah, get really good. And then kind of just work out the kind of people that you like to work with. Like mine was kind of, not like I did 25 to 45-year-olds just wanted to get into better shape and so they could have sex with the lights on. That was kind of always the way that I pitched it. And that was like, of kind of the guy I am. And that worked really well for me. And like, I never had any interest in injuries or rehab or shit like that because it was just a bit slow. My like kind of high energy training and screaming at people and hitting PBs and stuff like that. So, yeah, that's kind of like, I think people try to complicate it. Get the skill sets, get the mindset, get results. That's all that it really needs to be, right? In terms of gym owners and like that's a really interesting play because it really just depends on how big you want to take it and how far you want to go and how much you want to grow it. So, if you want to go like we did and have 7 locations and do international and business partners, like there's just so many skill sets that you need to pick up along the way. But it's just I think the biggest thing that we learned was like you had to be okay with dropping the coaching standard just a touch from under where you were, because it didn't matter how much you educate your trainers and all this kind of stuff. Like they just, even after years, like there was out of probably the 100 or so trainers that I hired across the company, there'd be only 5 or 6 that were memorable that I'd rehire again. Like if I was going to start again. So I thought just at the start, it was just I always didn't get a good batch of trainers. But again, Perth, the most isolated city in the world, plus one of the careers that has the shortest life expectancy out of any careers, doesn't make for a good talent pool of coaches that you can pick from. So that's kind of one of my reflections on the gym game in Perth. I was like, you look at like these places like LA and Miami and stuff like that are fitness hubs. They've got coaches like that don't that are amazing that don't want to open their own studios, where we found those coaches, but there just wasn't that many of them. So yeah, that's kind of in that front. Like, again, depending on where we want to take this conversation, I can go for hours on the gym owner. And yeah.
Daniel's just recently sold his, and maybe the retreat idea, I think, is phenomenal. Like, that was the biggest part of Real Movement. Was, I was just purely ran a retreats business, really, with an online component that made it an annual subscription. And it worked phenomenally. I had a club. I think it is a really good business model, and it lets you go national as well. So like international, I had members all over the world, and it was sold on the basis that, you'll come to an event. You can come to any event that you want. Some guys flew into Australia. Guys from Australia flew to Spain. There were, opportunities of a lifetime kind of thing. A lot of guys made great friends and really just like changed their perspective on life. Thinking about it now, like it'd be so cool to do it again with Uncommon Success, like with a bit broader conversation, and have guys like Jack come along and, then be able to do the training and do the cool experiences. But also sort of broaden the conversation of getting other stuff done, like increasing awareness around the financial side. And there's a bit more mandate to go wider, but it's definitely worth exploring and experiencing. Like, even if it's not super expensive, your first event, like a lot of the coaches that I've worked with, their first event, they just kind of took their own members, like 5, 6, 8, 10 of their own members, like down the coast or up the coast somewhere, to an Airbnb, and they just ran a thing. Like, they asked questions, they did activities, and generally they went really well. And then that became a separate part of their business. I know Tim Frey's doing it quite well, quite hardcore over there in Perth. But most of the Real Movement coaches did it because they saw that it worked for me, and they were like, that was fun. Like, let's do this. It's funny because, like, I don't really, like, I've stopped doing it pretty much just because I feel a bit restricted about travel and that sort of thing, and a bit uncertain, and just kind of got out of the habit of it, I guess, and don't really need to from a business perspective. But almost anyone can do it in their own neighborhood. Like, there's very, if you're in full lockdown, then you can't, but everyone else, you can do it. And if that happens, you just postpone the date and you still run it. So, I think that's a real big one, Jack. Like, for all the, the out there stuff that we covered up front, like it's just a straight up way to get a better experience, and then potentially add a whole new business to your business, kind of attack on.
Definitely. Like, I just see, like, kind of my big thing is, like, I've seen just like through all my networks and just personally, like, the people are just craving that connection at the moment. Like, again, in Australia, at least, like, everyone was just so disconnected. I was living in Sydney for 4 or so months in the middle of the year, and it was awesome. And then it turned terrible with lockdown. So I'm like, half of Australia's been in lockdown for most of the year. So, like, everyone's just craving that connection. And I think, like, that was the cool thing about, obviously, the Real Movement, like the 3-day events, like, 2-day weekends kind of thing. You just get really good connections with people. And, like, I'm still mates with, that was kind of one of the only times I've ever met Tim Frey, and we had a really good conversation the other day. And just from that weekend, five or so years ago. So it's like connecting people that have obviously common interests, which if they're coming on the retreats, they are going to have things in common. And then, creating this really good experience for them. Like, it's one of those things, like, it's not hard to do. It just takes a bit of planning. And again, nothing's really generally that hard to do. It just needs unless you're doing brain surgery or trying to create a rocket or something like that, like, most things every day aren't that complicated. Like, it's just, you need to know what you're doing. And you need to just put a fucking bit of effort into it, a bit of elbow grease, bit of work, bit of study and research and all that kind of stuff. So I'm like, well, like, to be able to create these environments and these opportunities for people to connect and grow together and, like, be with people of common interest. Like, I think so many people feel ostracized and isolated around Australia that, if you can create these events and spaces for people, creating those spaces for people to connect, it's such an opportunity.
Yeah, the 2-day ones were more workshops, and then we had like 4-day ones that were like less people and they're often at my house or like those other kind of locations. But yeah, the workshop's really cool too. People would connect well, and we did some of that stuff. They're all different, I guess. I never really repeated the same thing. Part of my problem of not systemizing, just always experimenting. But yeah, so what about in terms of marketing? You know, like I know that's a big part of I see your Instagram is the SEO, you know, is the kind of key thing that you push in there, or is that what's going on with that?
Yeah, like it was a bit of a discovery phase. So we kind of, I guess, how to explain it? These guys spent about $40 million developing this AI for SEO. And like we were kind of sold on the pretense that they like it kind of can rank businesses in 30 days, 90 days. So for anyone that's run Google ads before, like getting them to page 1 in 90 days would like change their business, right? Like, cause my problem is I'm used to like Facebook speed and Facebook marketing, which is like, hey, put these ads on, get leads today, sell tomorrow. Whereas 99% of business owners have never experienced that. So they're, you know, if they get 5 leads a month, from inbound prospecting, then they're fucking over the moon. Whereas, you know, 5 leads an hour was kind of the hygiene standard for the gyms because we'd get 100 leads a day. So it was just a different standard in that regard. So the SEO stuff, like we're just kind of working with the AI developers because like we've been running a few tests. Like we're very fortunate. We've got a good network of businesses that we run through with our CRM and the Automation King that we can kind of run these things with them. There's obviously all the gyms that we used to own, the cryotherapy clinic we used to own, and we can just run these things, test them out. But we're not seeing the results that we'd like with it. So it's a bit frustrating is really the case. But because Google's AI has so many different layers and like data points. Facebook ads has 2 million. Facebook tracks 2 million different data points for each user, which is fucking crazy. So, you know, to feed this information into it, then you can get really good results and you get really fucking icky data, but it's just sometimes it doesn't work. So when the algorithm doesn't work, you don't get a good result. So that's kind of where that's been put on hold a bit for now. So what we're kind of doing is just finding a few businesses that are kind of doing 7 figures and want to scale, and going in, fixing creating their sales argument, because even successful businesses, they don't really have this is our key sales message that everyone knows in the company, what we do, how we do it, blah, blah, blah. Then creating like video sales letters and then creating the automation marketing, follow-up, email, customer experience from start to finish. That's what we did for the gyms, and we did it really successfully. And we like know how businesses run and marketing and that kind of shit. So that's kind of what I'm focusing on now, just working with a few businesses. It's a 50 to 100K fee plus the profit share. So like it is high ticket stuff. But you know, when you've got a scalable offering, you can, like, it doesn't matter, right? When you're selling software or services or subscriptions and shit like that, you know, it's just numbers into the top of the funnel. And it doesn't matter if you have 1 customer or 1 million customers, that you're still the same infrastructure. So that's kind of what I'm doing at the moment. And it means just like, it's like I'm kind of like a add-on executive growth consultant. Like I kind of fix the whole business. And then like, again, as a second tier going into staffing and hiring and operations and all that kind of shit. So I've got those skills, which is cool. And most business owners generally don't have a grip on all of it, or they're really good at one thing, and they just haven't developed that skill set. And, you know, they've got dusty eyes because they've been looking at their business for 5-10 years or whatever it happens to be. So that's kind of the next little play. And I'm kind of, my plan is just getting 5 to 5 million liquid. I'm about halfway there. And once you're there, I'll start pretty much just go with a fund manager and get 8-10% per annum. And then just be an investor full time, because that's what I like doing. I just need to get that capital base. And I think kind of 5 million, you're pretty much set for life. Like if you can get to 5 million liquid, 8% is 400 grand. It's 36 grand a month. You're fucking spending like a maniac if you got spending 36 grand a month, like, you know, $1,000 a day. So that's kind of, that's what I've really been working on. Kind of didn't really ever have a number. And I was like, well, that's my number to get to. So, just if we see a nice double in crypto market caps and they all pop off, I'll kind of be there, cash out, and then start again. But that's kind of where I think, like, for anyone watching, if you look at getting 10% per annum on your investments, as long as you have that capital there, right? So whatever your number is, if you need 100 grand a year, you only need $1 million. So you get $1 million liquid, invest it, and then you got 10% per annum. That's your 100 grand a year. So I think that's like getting that exit number, because once you're at that point, then you never have to work again, because you only need to work on things that you love. And for me, that's really important, because I spent 2 years of my life hating my company, and hating my business. So, that's kind of what I guess probably been one of my biggest shifts over the last 12 months, is like, what does it take to live a really good lifestyle? And, like, I like having fun and flying around, doing that kind of shit. So I do have a bit of a more of expensive baseline. So for me, that, kind of like, well, if I get to 5 mil, that's 10 grand a week to go blow. And I did heaps of mushrooms and smoked a joint in Thailand, and Jimmy and I, we did it together just after we sold the gyms, and we kind of came to the realization that we're like, well, we had like a co-conscious trip. It was really fucking wild, but we both kind of came out of the room together and like, what do we do all this for? Like, why do we put ourselves through so much stress? We just like been through this gym journey. It was 6 years, and fuck, I could go talk for hours on the shit that happened in that. And it's like, why do we put ourselves through this? Like, why do we do this? And we kind of came to the conclusion, and it was like a 2 a.m. chat. It was like, the only really two things that matter in life are relationships and experiences. And what money does is just gives you the power to have the best experiences that you want. You can still do the going out bush and connecting with nature and all that kind of shit, but you can, with money, it shortens the time between pain. So if you say, like, most people find airports painful, right? Whereas you've got enough money, you roll up, an Uber drives you to the private jet hangar, you get out of the car, you walk up the steps, and you fly out. So there's no pain there, right? So that's kind of why, that's kind of what's driving me there in that regard. I'm like, well, the more money I have, the more experiences I have, and you don't ever have to say no. So that is it was a really insightful thing. Haven't really dabbled too much in the whole like psychedelic.
When was that?
That was March last year.
There's a few big advocates of mushrooms in our community and in the Elite Money Club and stuff. It comes up a lot. So yeah, there is some stuff with that different perspective and perception of consciousness. I get it with the Wim Hof stuff. Like when I do Wim Hof stuff, Keegan Bizzle's on here. Yeah, so he's putting the smiley in there. Like getting into different consciousness, I think, is really important. And that's kind of what you're offering these businesses in a way, like not in the mushroom way, but you're bringing different consciousness to their business to say, well, hey, like, why don't you have a look at X, Y, Z? And it's cool that you have the confidence to go after that, like 50 to 100K buy-in plus equity. Like this is, I love, that's one of the reasons why I love speaking with you, Jack. Like, and there are lots, but one of them is like the confidence that you have to go after the sort of big plays. How old are you now?
I'm 27.
Yeah. So you've always been like this young kid that's like just going hard, and, you still got a fair way to 30, and, you've done a bunch. What I wanted to question there, or just get your thoughts on, is like, you've got that exit, and I love that clarity around the number and like, where you're going to, and it's possible that could happen in the next month, like the way people are talking about the end of crypto bull run, whether it's February, whether it's April, or maybe it doesn't happen, and you got to keep plugging away. But if it happens, then that number's like just around the corner potentially, if depending on, I don't know where your assets are, but it could be there. When you talk about experience, like the experience of service and the experience of being valuable and the experience of, some of that side, like I'm wondering whether you're devaluing or missing some of like what was good about the gym thing and the struggle that you went through and how that served you, and whether you would continue to want that like struggle of like being really valuable, of like, can I go into a business for $100 grand or $1 million and turn it into $100 million business instead of, like, will you still want that after you've hit the...
I just missed the last half of that question. My headphone ran out of juice. So you said service, be valuable $100,000 or $1 million, and then it cut out.
Yeah. So the crux of the question is like, do you think you're still going to want to serve and be valuable? Like, will you still look to, or do you think you'll be happy? Or you think your best life will be investing and, just taking on other experiences outside of business?
So my thing, I probably my number one, I don't know how to drive, or what I like doing, what I love doing is problem solving. So that's kind of what I really get off on, like just being able to go and solve this problem and go, fuck yeah, like I solved it. Because, most things I think are solvable. You just got to work out how. So that's kind of what I think I'll do. In terms of once you get to that point, like labor was never intended to outbeat capital with inflation. So what I mean by that is, wages will never grow faster than capital appreciation. Like it just can't do it, especially with leverage. So when you realize that, when you realize like your labor and skills, like it will never outpace capital growth, especially with leverage. It shifts your perspective on what you want to spend your time doing, because you can put your labor in there, which is great, and we need that and all that kind of stuff, but you kind of devalue yourself when it's not the best allocation of your resources, which is time. So when you're allocating these resources to unfavorable outcomes, then for me, it shifted to go, sweet, how do I learn to be the most valuable person that I can to me as an ecosystem? So I was like, well, I need to learn about how capital works, and then obviously leverage and property and all that kind of stuff, because property growth on leverage, it's just nothing can really beat it. Obviously, you've got business for exit. And again, I still haven't found, what I would want to do for that, like that kind of passion project of what's the next business. Like the software automation king stuff's good, but it's also a bit monotonous, pain in the ass as well. So again, it's like, as text fails and blah, blah, blah. Like that's, it's good, but you're like, well, I really love it. And I don't really love sitting behind a desk all day. Like I know it's needed and I can do it, but like, do I want to devote that? And I think that's probably one thing I miss from the gyms is just the human interaction. I used to see 100 people a day and just kind of they all knew me and staff and the team trainings and all the trainers and blah, 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 blah. So yeah, would I like with you, sir, would I keep going after that? Yeah, but more in a problem solving style kind of way, and just going to solve bigger problems for more money. Would probably be what I say, then, you go work on $1 billion company, it goes from 100K to $1 million, or you go work on a multi-billion-dollar company, you get a 8-figure payday for solving their marketing problems or their business problems. So yeah, definitely. I think that's always going to be a part of my life, in one way or another. But yeah, I kind of will want to get to that level and get there for me, and then go, okay, cool, just reset and rebalance and go, cool, what's next?
Yeah, that's cool. I can see that coming around again, and I think like that's like it's good to have that number, have the idea of like, yeah, I'm going to be an investor, and then you can pick things up and put them down. Maybe you work on a project for 3 to 6 months to get like that mad growth and big exit, and you got the residual if you set that upright, like where you've made an impact and then you're out, like that would that makes a ton of sense. Of like, I could see you doing that and being, loving that, and then traveling in between and having a bunch of time where you're not really plugging away at things as much. But yeah, I think there's just a conversation of like, how would you live if you were in that position is expands again, like what we're actually shooting for. Again, like thanks so much, and thanks everyone jumping on. It's more fun kind of having different perspectives and sort of thinking about how everyone else is looking at it. The questions coming in too. So thanks so much.
No worries, guys. Awesome. Thanks for having me.